Well, of course, thanks to Apeatu CBD for bringing us the news, and thanks to you for staying now for the news review. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm the Lone Ranger for today, and let's get into the salient matters. But before we do, uh, I actually just wanted to contemplate this bit that for a country ranked recently by the Global Peace Index, of being the second most peaceful country in Africa, and the happenings over the last week, it leaves a lot to be desired. And these are things that we ought to really be giving some hard thought to as a people. But let's dig into the papers now, and we'll start with the Daily Graphic newspaper. PDS loses ECG assets management case. There's also Katanga Unity Halls clash over SRC vetting. There's Ghana, others celebrate China's malaria feat. We'll be telling you a bit more about that. China finally eradicating malaria, and Cuba doing so a long time ago. Of course, they have to deal with dengue fever, but there's also Achimota School Delta outbreak. Health Service tackles a virus. I'll bring you more stories from the Daily Graphic newspaper, but let me say a very good morning to Joseph Akable, who joins the conversation via Zoom. Joseph, good morning.
Good morning, Ben.
How are you doing?
Great. I hope you're doing well.
Very well here, very well. And let me just let you, take us through the papers that you have very quickly, and I'll come back into the studio. So what papers are you going to be looking at, Joseph?
So I'll start off with the Daily Guide. The Daily Guide, the front page has this story about that presidential pardon that was granted Abu Gapele. So the headline is Nana releases jailed ex-NDC MP, comes along with his photograph. And Commodity Exchange connects more markets. Hands off ECG court throws out PDS, also on the front page. And Sports Ministry signs big deal for Black Stars others. 2,127 students test positive for COVID-19, also on the front page. In terms of the stories inside the papers, there are some issues related to the sports ministry signing big deal for the Black Stars. The day's footballer of the year, also in the inside pages of the Daily Guide. The final front page now has this story about 1.9 billion CD judgment debt paid in 20 years. Every government since 2000 caused judgment debt. That's according to reports. And KNUST suspends SRC elections committee to investigate disturbances. 34 active cases of Delta variant COVID-19 confirmed in Greater Accra and Ashanti regions. And Dr. Bawumia, National Chief Imam, called for calm after a Jura shooting incident. Closing gender gap critical to nation building. That's according to the Chief of Staff, also on the front page of the Finder newspaper. And the last one for me will be that of the Daily Dispatch that has this story. Abuja Port justifies burning of excavators. And another story here about the Jura shooting. I sanction military deployment in Jura. That's according to the regional minister. And women remain critical in the development of every sector. Chief of Staff saying so. And the last one here, Accra Academy launches 90th anniversary celebration. Also on the front page of the Daily Dispatch.
Super, Joseph. Let me come back into the studio and briefly take us through the rest of the papers. And Achimota School Delta outbreak, Health Service tackles a virus. We'll bring you some details of that. The international pages talk about Nigerian families, starting with page 5. Nigerian families struggle to survive as food prices soar. It talks about how the number of people living in poverty in Nigeria, Africa's most populous nation with 210 million inhabitants, was already among the highest in the world. Backed by inflation, Nigeria has been battered by the double economic effect of low global oil prices and the pandemic. The World Bank estimates the country's soaring inflation and food prices pushed another 7 million people into poverty in 2021. Nowhere cool like that. The other international page, page 9, military plane crash kills 45 in the Philippines. And then masks will become personal choice in the UK. And England is moving into a period without legal restrictions where the public will have to exercise personal responsibility, including on face masks, the housing secretary has said. Of course, in Ghana, with the outbreak of Delta and all of that, I do not know what our stance would be on that. As it is, we are supposed to wear the masks even after 2 shots of AstraZeneca. the middle page or the middle spread of the daily graphic, noise pollution in Accra, and there's a lot of that, isn't there? On the back page, we have Faisal Stretch Kotoko in Obuase, which now means that, Asante Kotoko, after that, stalemate, now they have quite a hurdle to overcome. There's also Ghanaian wins day for wonders. That's it with the Daily Graphic newspaper. Quickly to the Ghanaian Times. COVID-19 Delta variant more deadly. 34 cases recorded so far. Catholic Bishops Confab slams military brutalities, calls for independent probe. The middle spread talks about same, and on the back page, it's all about Legon City's Bechem United drawing and 11 wonders stunning Oli in Accra. There's this interesting story in the BNFT that I'd quickly like to highlight. It talks about illegal and regulated sand winning in the Volta River and how it's soaring. So Ghanaians are fronting for Chinese. The Minerals Commission says no foreigner is permitted to win sand. It's that simple. No sand winning by a foreigner. And again, Ghana is losing or has lost some $6.3 billion annually to land degradation. So the question is, we've polluted all our water bodies. It was only over a month ago that I was in the eastern region, and you could see, the Volta River and all of that. We were even talking about how that was our only river basically left, pristine, Joseph. But here we are, and that is also being targeted for sand winning. I don't know what your thoughts are on it, Akable.
I think we have very well crafted laws that are generally geared at protecting the environment, and it's because of the impact that it has on all of us if our environment is destroyed. And so it's just been an enforcement challenge over the period, and that is what we'll continue to ask for. I think it's very disturbing, all forms of degradation, be it sand winning or be it mining that's not sustainable, that destroys the environment. So all those deforestation, among others, all those are matters that should be of great concern to us. And the expectation is that people we've entrusted state responsibility to protect us and the environment for that matter will take steps to ensure that that is done.
The Ghanaian published a newspaper, and it regurgitates that issue you brought from the Finder. Ghana blows 1.9 billion Ghana cedis on judgment debts in 20 years. There's also Akufo-Addo, MPP and NDC mourn with Gabi Ochre Dako. The Custodian newspaper, Parliament's committee to probe WA military brutalities. And I felt a bit, sad when I heard the WANA, talking about the fact that asking the question of the military, is a mobile phone more important than the citizens of WA? That was the question posed to them. Then there's ex-IGP Apeatu sues TV host Justice Annan for slander. And then there's Ghana loses 1.89 billion to judgment debt in 20 years. Republic Press now, it says NDC's Abuga Pele freed. And that one-time member of parliament for the Chianapaga constituency in the Upper East region and a former national coordinator of the now-defunct Ghana Youth Employment and Entrepreneurial Development Agency, Abuga Pele, has reportedly been pardoned by President Akufo-Addo on health grounds. Just sharing with you some of what I've seen on social media. Others have also inquired, why not other people as well who have suffered similar fates, pointing to the fact that this could just be a political decision. But political or not, Abuga Pele, we all remember his story, and he, per what we are gathering, is going to be pardoned. Mahama joins bandwagon, slams Akufo-Addo for recent killings, and Domelevo back again, rehashes old script to indict Akufo-Addo. The final paper I shall do is the Economy Times. CD depreciation slows for first half of 2021. So, Joseph, let's get into the three papers you have. I know you have the Daily Dispatch, the Daily Guide, and the Finder. Let's pick out the salient stories from there that you'd like to highlight, Joseph.
I think there's this story from the Daily Guide that I find quite interesting. It's about the PDS issue because we've not heard much about the court case so far. We are learning from the Guide this morning that the court has thrown out the action by the PDS against government. And portions of the story reads that the Commercial Division of the High Court, presided over by the leadership Justice Equia Sapoma Amwa, has in the ruling dated Friday, 2nd July 2021, dismissed an application for judicial review filed by Power Distribution Service against the Attorney General following the cancellation of the PDS operating licenses issued by the Energy Commission. And so they were asking for a number of reliefs, including asking the court to set aside government's decision to terminate the agreement. And now we are being told that the court has ruled in favor of government, holding that government was justified in terminating it. And so the full reasons we are told to be filed at the registry of the courts, and so we don't know the specific details, but the conclusion is what has been reported. And I think it's some good news now, particularly because of the recent controversy. You recall during the vetting of the deputy minister designate, there's some amount of money belonging to the state that is in the coffers of PDS that PDS has refused to make available to the state because they said there's a pending case. And so they will refuse to release the money. And the minister had actually indicated that it's because of the pending court case. Now that this is out of the way, hopefully the state can go after and take that money, because it's money that we have all paid by way of our bills to PDS, which is supposed to belong to the states.
Well, interesting, story there as far as that is concerned. It's a matter that the minority has also raised, and finally we're getting at least some closure to the matter. And accessing those funds would also mean we can do quite a lot with it, having it in the kitty, the state's kitty. But any other stories you'd like to highlight from the Daily Guide?
There are a couple of others. I mean, there's this COVID situation too. Is also something that is very worrying. And according to the Director General of the Ghana Health Service, we are recording a lot of cases in the schools particularly, and that is of concern. And we now know of the Achimota situation where the Delta variant is within the population. I guess the lesson and advice that we would keep pushing across is that we should all stick to the protocols when you are moving into public places. You should wear your mask, you should continue with the hand washing and the use of the sanitizer as well. And I listened to Dr. Kumabwadi yesterday. He said earlier we're recording about 30 cases per day. We are now doing around 80 cases. And the context again is that not a lot of the population has been vaccinated, aside from the obvious fact that science teaches us that our vaccines are not as effective as others in terms of this new strain that is very deadly and causes a lot of harm. And so we all need to be very careful and stick to the protocols. That's the surest way we are told of limiting the spread of the virus.
Right. And of course, that's also on the back of the fact that we have some 2,127 students in some 351 schools across the country who have contracted the virus. And then we have that toll when it comes to the Delta variant of the virus, 34 extant. For me, Akable, it's a bit of a concern because in April, it was at KIA. Then in July the 1st, we found it in, the community. And now only God knows what the spread rate could be. For now, Delta isn't the biggest in terms of numbers. Alpha, the UK variant, still is. But for me, I'm just praying because of how contagious it is, its level of transmissibility, and the effect when you're hospitalized. Thankfully, a lot of those who got it, at least in Achimota, were asymptomatic. So we just thank God for that.
But the fear now is because, Achimota, they are day students, they are boarders. And so
the movement,
the Ghana Health Service, exactly. The Ghana Health Service says what they are trying to do is to test the day students, contact trace, and get to their homes. So you can imagine how the chain works.
Yeah.
The students will go home, they'll go and buy beans from behind the house, they'll go and buy Omo or So Clean or whatever washing detergent for their family members.
I can't believe why beans? Why go straight to Gobert this morning? Is that your favorite?
It's early morning, I'm hungry.
I see. But very important point you're making, the movement and all of that. Contact tracing is going to be a nightmare.
Exactly. And the best the state can do at this stage is to follow to some extent. I mean, we can't follow to the logical conclusion. The best they can do is to get to the homes, test those in the homes there, make sure everyone is fine. Just at those levels. Because going all the way, that is why the best advice really, if you've you've been vaccinated, I mean, it makes sense that you wear your mask because you can imagine that you have the thing about the virus that is very confusing is that there are people who have the virus, no symptoms, they are not sick, they infect you and you become sick and you may even die as a result of that. Yeah. And so it's a collective responsibility. For once, my life depends directly on you and your life depends directly on me.
You see why I'm always masked up, even after two shots of AstraZeneca. So it may not even be to protect myself, but to protect others. But there's a story that I like us to get into. We've all been through the the tertiary system in this country. And it's on page 16 of the Daily Graphic. Katanga Unity Halls clash over SRC vetting. And we're told students of the University Hall, popularly called Katanga, and their counterparts of Unity Hall Kunti of the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology in the early hours of yesterday clashed at the vetting of candidates for the Students' Representative Council. Let me quickly skip to the causes. The two halls are considered traditional rivals on the campus, and according to sources, the clash, which occurred around 2:45 a.m., resulted from a misunderstanding between supporters of two candidates vying for the SRC presidency. The source said the confusion broke out when a member of the campaign team of the Kunti Hall candidate tried to prevent supporters of the candidate from the Katanga Hall from entering the hall. But how would I even refer to them? We tend to use skirmishes a lot. This sort of infighting in our institutions. You can talk about the University of Ghana, my alma mater. You can talk about the Kwame Nkrumah University. You can talk about Cape Coast. All of them. I don't get it. It appears it's ever so common, and whenever it happens, it leaves destruction in its wake. I don't know what you think we can do to stem the tide of these happenings.
It's worrying, and I mean the thing. It's elections. I'm always very concerned when elections results in violence. I mean, because the universities are supposed to be quite an enlightened society, and what we preach always is that no matter what the disagreements are, we should be able to use dialogue to resolve them. And so when you have quite an enlightened society that is supposed to know better, some of these things happening, it's very worrying. And I've seen a statement from the management of the university indicating that a committee will be set up to thoroughly investigate this matter. KNUST, I remember not too long ago, they were in the news when the students went on rampage and destroyed all sorts of things. The government had to come in and dissolve the council and all those issues that came up there. Violence of all forms are not good. And I always, like psychologists teach, the best way of dealing with it is always punishing people who engage in it. At least it will
just set some
deter
example.
some of them. Exactly. So change them and also deter others from engaging in that. But it's not very good scenes at all. I've seen videos from, I mean, it was a mess at the Great Hall. They were just throwing chairs across. This is SRC elections, Ben.
Well, I mean, if we do these at SRC elections, should we be surprised when in our national elections such things happen? And maybe we might need some, I don't know, but draw some linkages between what happens on the national level and what happens in a microcosm of, let's say, a public university, because you would see linkages. It's either those students are learning the example of our political leaders, or vice versa. Whichever way it is, it's a reflection from both ends. But let's quickly take a look at some judgment debt bits. You spoke of that when you read from the Finder newspaper. 1.9 billion Ghana cedi judgment debts paid in 20 years. And every government since 2000 has caused judgment debts, according to a report. The latest we have on our hands, that to do with the excavators, and that's another gargantuan sum if it is actually, if it goes through. So I don't know. What is your take on that? Would you like to highlight that story, Joseph?
I mean, we are told that the amount is also, it's 112% of the total central government grants received in 2019. It's a lot of money that is going down the drain, and it's always as a result of the actions and inactions of people entrusted. Public office is a very serious issue. We all can't do something, so we've decided that we are going to let you do it for us.
Right.
And we try to provide specs just to make you comfortable. So we are fueling your car, we are giving you tax exemptions, we are giving you loans, you are paid well, all those things, just to ensure that you protect the interest of all of us. I mean, I think the conversation needs to go a step further to people who cause financial loss to the state. What actions are we taking against them? Because pick the excavators, for instance. These are the interministerial task force, people who were employed by the state, who decided to unlawfully. What analysis did they do to conclude that we can seize this excavator? Worst of all, they sold the excavator contrary to law.
Yeah.
Even though the lay-down procedure is clear. And so we see a public officer who wrongly concluded that the company was engaged in illegal mining, who again wrongly concluded that he had the right to sell the excavator. How exactly does this become a burden on the states? It can't be a burden on the states. We have to go after these individuals, and until we do that,
But you also agree, I mean, vicarious responsibility or vicarious liability in law, but in this sense, maybe more aligned because these individuals were acting on behalf of a certain state.
absolutely,
They were not
absolutely.
acting on
So
their own.
at all levels, from the government level, the minister responsible, those who give the instructions, from all those levels up to the bottom. So it should be such that it should, unless you show us practical steps that you took in your best interest, seize with the facts to ensure that it doesn't result in that situation, we need to go after you. Because, and to be clear, Ben, someone said some time ago that I work like a bull to pay my taxes. It is that those taxes that we are going to be used to pay for those judgment debts.
Yeah. Well, on that bit, just to break down a few more of what the Finder newspaper says, it says 1.3 billion of the 1.9 plus billion resulted from contract breaches, 479.2 million from compensation of compulsory land acquisition, 29.9 million from statutory breaches by public officials, like you're just mentioning. And this represents 135% of multilateral loans in 2019. So you see the real impact of this. It represents 112% of grants received in 2019, and finally constitutes 30% of health expenditure in 2019. That's the impact. Anyway, so that's it for the Finder newspaper and that story. But in a related event, especially as you are speaking, Joseph Akable, of the roles of public officials, we saw what happened in Parliament when the 7th Parliament was giving way to the 8th Parliament and the invasion of the House by military officers. We've seen what has happened in Wa, and before Wa, we saw what happened in Ejura. And the Ashanti Regional Minister, according to the Ghanaian Times newspaper on page 3, says, I ordered military to go to Ejura to restore calm. The story basically saying that Simon Osei-Mensah, Ashanti Regional Minister, has defended the use of force by the police and military during the protest by the youth in Ejura. And following his burial, the burial of Kaka, the youth in the town embarked on a demonstration and was met by shooting from the military. Now, this is what the minister says. I did, yes. I requested for their support as chairman of the Regional Security Council. He is talking of the military, and he says, I got an intelligence report that after the burial of Kaka, they were going to burn the police station, including the 2 persons who were arrested. That won't help us. That is his, well, what he says warranted this action. Your take, Akable?
I mean, I think it's fine to deploy the men. I mean, the problem really is what the men went to do, and that is what is contrary to any proper policing methods that we all know. I mean, no one cares whether you deploy the Navy or whoever to contain whatever situation that we have to deal with. If they have to just be responsible, you fire warning shots. I mean, I saw a video from Sunyani, the Coronation Park. There was a bit of a chaos. I think it's a match between RTU and one team from the Sunyani area, and the referee was beaten up and everything. But the video that I saw is a police vehicle that was leading the RTU bus out of the stadium.
Right.
And it clearly showed how they control the crowd. I mean, they were just firing warning shots up into the air while they drove out, just firing. So people were moving back. Then they led the bus out of it. I mean, people are protesting. The thing that about protests that people need to understand is that it's people's passions. Like, they are incensed about something. They are upset. They are angry that someone has died. Those things, you can't control them. And it doesn't make any sense to just shoot at them. And we captured videos, people on video bending down, a soldier bending down on one knee and firing into a crowd, not upwards. And so I think, and I'm not too sure about the sort of assessment. Again, there's the argument that we should move from military to proper policing, in the sense that a lot of states are focusing more on equipping their police to be capable of dealing with every situation and going down on the military.
Right.
So, but our situation is where the military they have a lot of firepower, they are better equipped, and that's how come we easily call them when there's any little disagreement or disturbance.
Well, that in itself is very problematic. We've reduced our numbers when it comes to the police to citizen ratio, I think, from 800 to 500 now. I don't know. We've not hit 500 yet. It was 1,200. We brought it down to 800. But I still feel, and it's been reflected by some security analysts, that we tend to involve the military far too often. And even corroborated by Brigadier General Nunu Mensah, retired, who recently said that the military, their focus is different. When they go out there into a crowd, they are not looking at too much of crowd control and all of that. That's not what they are trained for. They are trained to do maximal damage.
For war,
So
yeah,
aren't
for
we
war.
even, doing the wrong thing, putting the military out there? Like you're rightly stating, other countries focus on the police. So the right things ought to be done. But I think this is a conversation we shall keep on having as time goes on. But Joseph, thank you so much for joining the conversation. It's been refreshing.
Thank you, Ben.
Good. So this is where we wrap. If we have enough time, we can take a look at myjoyonline.com. If not, you can just pass through myjoyonline.com. The major stories in Ghana and beyond are there. And we'll just check out a few stories from myjoyonline.com. So it says, man beheaded at Feyase in Ashanti region. Then there's Delta variant dominant in fresh 135 COVID-19 cases at Achimota School. And there's more. You can actually check out those details on myjoyonline.com. Coming up next, though, we have sporting action for you with Muftau Nabila. Do stay.